I listened to your latest podcast and it was really interesting. You said that people find it hard to wrap their head around manifesting an SP as opposed to, say, a job or a house or something similar because it involves free will of another person. Would love to hear more from both of you on that. It's a question that comes quite a bit, like, okay, I want to manifest a specific person, a specific love, but that person has free will. How does my will to be with that person plays out with that person's free will?
I really love that question, but I was thinking, I would love to hear your perspective on it. What would your answer be?
So the way I've thought about it so far, I feel like this is evolving. More understanding comes as we go. But for now, I think about Neville borrows a lot from the Bible, and he talks about creation is finished. It's all done. It's all created. So every type of state of beingness or self-concept exists already. And I think this is even from Neville, where he says that it's not really a matter of free will like we understand it, but it's free will to select a state. If there is already an existing version of me who is experiencing that love with that person, it's because to some extent, that person somewhere, if you borrow from quantum mechanics of physics, that there is a version of universe where that person and I have made a choice to be together, right? So my goal in manifestation is not to try to see if that person's will is to be with me. It's not about the person. The way I get it is, if there is a version of me who is experiencing this love already, my free will is to choose that version over and over until it feels natural. So I'm not necessarily violating that person's free will because creation is finished and that version of that person and I already exist together. So I'm only choosing it. So I guess that's the way I've kind of thought about it and answered it so far, but I want to hear from you. What do you think?
I agree with you. I also interpret Neville saying that the only time we have free will is to choose the state. But within the state, we don't have any free will. And this is for me mind-blowing because if you try it out yourself and stick to the formula of choosing a state and just let the state lead, you will notice that, let's say you choose a state of being obese. Nobody chooses that, but that's where you are, that's where you find yourself.
Yeah.
And if you look at those assumptions that I will never lose weight, I will always be unhealthy, and so on and so on, it will be impossible for you to change that state until you choose to be free from that state, because that's what normally happens to us, that we get fed up of a state. We get fed up and we choose something new, and suddenly you choose to be free. You want to be healthy. You want to see yourself running. You want to see you practicing your imagination with the free will to change your circumstances. So, but within that state, you can't. So it works equally if you are healthy and want to become obese, and you have to change the state in order for you to feel that. But within that state, you don't have any free will. So I definitely agree with that. And I interpret it the same way. And when you sent me this question, I thought it was a very interesting question, because for me, it was like, why would somebody ask a question like that? Which state is this person? And no judgment at all. It's just that I was very curious, and I realized that many people that I have encountered and want to manifest a specific love or a person, they make it about somebody else than themselves. And it's the perfect opportunity to get it, that this person is actually mirroring what I feel inside. And go inside yourself and ask yourself, what is it? What is it that's triggering me? Why doesn't this person want me? Why am I even thinking that way? That will link you directly to the state you are in, And so instead of trying to figure out how can I choose that person when that person is not choosing me, well, that's your assumption. You're already assuming that person is not going to choose you. And that person is showing you that is not going to choose you because that's what you believe. Now the question is, why do you believe that? I don't even think it's necessary to need to know why you believe that. You just need to change it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
Yeah.
That's my take. I
No,
don't know
I
if I
like,
answered the question.
no, you did. I like that. To the listener, you can always feel free to send questions. If you hear this podcast and you're like, okay, I have this question, make sure you send it to us. We all have been conditioned to think about free will a certain way before we came across the law of assumption. And I'm trying to figure out another example in my life that doesn't have to do with a specific person to illustrate. I'm thinking about the fact that I've been in the US for so long with a visa that was restrictive, even though I desired a visa that would have given me more permission to work and anywhere I wanted and all that. For so long, I was with this kind of specific visa. And that was before I knew about the law of assumption. So my assumption at that time was, well, I have zero power unless God intervenes on behalf of me and the government changes the whole stipulation with the visa.
Yes.
I'm here, poor me. I cannot violate their free will to put together laws that they put together. So it felt very much powerless. I felt very powerless. And it's interesting because in that state, it feels like you've put their will above your will or their desires above your desire, right? And for me, now I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, the law of assumption would have allowed me to understand that it really doesn't matter as long as there is a version of me, a state of being of me that exists with the visa I wanted, doing the things that I desired. All I needed to do is to choose that version and embody that version over and over until it becomes natural. And somehow, the how is what we don't know. Somehow, maybe a new law will have been passed, something would have happened to bring to me what I desire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you look back on it, that's exactly what you did. You chose a different state. So
yeah, at some point I did.
yeah, I mean, it is so fascinating because people really need to try these things out because the answers is within them. And when you and I are talking, for me, it's like we're just reminding people through our own experiences that the answer is within you. So I truly believe that when it comes to specific person or manifesting love, it's all about you and is going to continue to be all about you, conditioned or not, until you get it. Until you get it. It's either going to come in a way where you're fed up with it and you just release it, because that's what happened to me. I was fed up. I was like, no more men, no more dating. Boom, the day after he came. But what I did was accepting myself fully. Because even if I express it like, I'm okay being alone for the rest of my life. I have my son, I love him. Even if that's how I expressed it, what I did is I showed love. I showed compassion for myself, that it's okay, I can exist. So
yeah.
So I think that's how it happened for me. That's when I started to realize that, wow, it really is all about me. I have to make it about me.
The question was asking a sense of what about that other person, free will? But then the answer we're giving is, well, it doesn't really matter. What matters the most is your free will or decision right now to choose the state of being. So he brings it back to being selfish, which is a hard topic for a lot of people, women especially.
Yeah, well, it actually depends on what we mean with selfish. We just said that you make it about yourself, right? So it is about you. So don't worry about the other person's free will. Just focus on what you know to be true for you, which is why do we want to manifest love? To be honest, why do we want a specific person? Why that person? Ask those questions. Why is that important for me? Why is this person mirroring to me? Or why is being with somebody life or death, or I have to have it? Ask yourself those questions and be attentive to that question, to the answers, and just like, interesting, I think it's a misconception that we all have free wills and that our free wills has to, sink in with each other, or otherwise it's going to be war, or who's going to win. That's your mind. That's your analytical mind who cannot grasp the concept of oneness. If your brain could master and understand and use it cognitively, what oneness meant, we wouldn't have these issues. But it can't. So just give it a rest. And I'm speaking like I've been doing this for the rest of my life, but actually I'm speaking to my old self. Like, don't try to figure it out intellectually. Just go straight to the heart. What's going on here? What do I really want? Yeah. What is it that expressing? And continue asking yourself, why? That's technique, to ask yourself the questions why. But if you do it, you will get the answer, because there's only one.
Yeah, I like how you brought it back to the heart, because it brings it back to the embodiment, or the being in the body. Earlier, you were saying how the embodiment process we have to kind of connect it with a movement, right? When we're doing the embodiment of the new state of being, let's say the version of me who is already happily married, doing the embodiment practice is to involve the body to some extent. Sometimes I tell my client to journal the movement and journal about that version, who that version is, how that version feels, and things like that. The journaling process helps. But there are many other ways to obviously do an embodiment practice.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it's all about connecting the mind and the body and the soul somehow, because when you're writing about the new state and how that feels and the wish fulfilled, you're kind of forcing yourself to move forward into something new.
I like that.
You're not only asking the question why and what is it, you're actually you're reliving something that you already know in your heart. And for me, that is so magnificent. It's so cool that if I want to become a teacher, and okay, let me sit down and write down, how does it feel to be a teacher? What am I doing in the morning? How am I eating my breakfast? Or how am I ending the day? I'm bringing out something, and that's what imagination does. And I think it's so fascinating. It's fascinating. It's that simple,
I like the moving forward, because then again, it brings it back to another practice, right? And I actually used to do a lot more of that practice in the past, when it's not snowing like right now outside, right? Going on a walk while, imagining that version of me, that again, bringing in that movement into the practice of embodiment is very helpful. I think in the manifestation community, a lot of times we read Neville, we read all those manifestation writers and authors, and maybe we listen to the teachers, and it's easy to think, okay, give me a technique, a formula that I'm going to sit in my room and input the formula, and then magically my life is going to change, right? That's kind of, and I don't blame people necessarily for thinking that, because sometimes for marketing purposes, people sometimes will be like, use this technique and then you're going to get all the things you want, plug in this formula and you don't have to lift a finger. It's like, drink this tea and you will lose all the weight. So you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So I think we formulate it that way. So people get confused.
Yeah, but also they're confused because they're looking, I mean, I'm talking about me also, because we're looking for answers outside of ourselves. That's it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. That's also an experience that we need to accept. It's there for us. We built it that way. We built that we have an external world and an internal world, and we will. This is where the fed up comes. This is where you suddenly feel like, I'm tired of this. I want to change everything, and there's nothing wrong with that path either. Nothing wrong with it, because we are here to experience ourselves. That's it. We're here to experience that